What Eileen Taylor found out when she went through the drive-thru that day was this. The items she needed were already paid for. In many ways, that applies to you in this community and often in your life. The items you need are already paid for. In a way, though, you sit between two generations. You are the recipient of the gifts of the generation before you, and you are the giver of the resources of the generation that will follow. We tend to mark those gifts with words that imply death as a condition preceding it. We talk about inheritance and legacy. But there is more to giving than what you leave behind. Your aliveness is part of the gift that you offer and part of the way you use the gifts that you receive. There's an old story of Hebrew wisdom that sums up this kind of giving, the kind of giving that thinks about the recipient and contemplates the long term. Are you ready for it? Long ago, there lived a righteous man named Honi. One day, he saw an old man planting a carob tree. Honi said to him, "Foolish man, do you think you will live to eat and enjoy the fruit of the tree you plant today? It will not bear fruit for many, many years." The old man replied, "I found trees in the world when I was born. My grandparents planted them for me. Now, I am planting for my grandchildren." Honi sat down in the shade of a nearby tree to take a short nap. But, as goes in stories, his short nap lasted 70 years. When he awoke, he was surprised to see a full-grown carob tree where the old man had planted a seed just before Honi fell asleep. An elderly man was picking its fruit. "Are you the man who planted this tree?" asked Honi. "No, my grandfather planted it for me." And so Honi learned the importance of planting seeds for future generations. Giving is the medicine for very specific illnesses that our culture passes on to us. Some of these illnesses come in the form of untrue stories. We talk about them sometimes in Resilience Circle, the stories that are passed around to us that are neither healthy nor true. One is that it has these initials. Are you ready? Y-O, Y-O. Say that for me. Y-O, Y-O. The story is you are on your own. What if that's not true? Consider these words adapted from Unitarian Universalist preeminent scholar Mark Morrison Reed. "The religious community is essential, for alone our perspective is too narrow to perceive all that must be understood, and our strength too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our perception widens and our strength is renewed." What I mean by this is that it's good for your own heart when you give in community. You can see your own giving power multiplied as you join it with that of others. And when you actually experience this, you experience that you are not alone. That stories bubble up when your heart is broken can be counteracted by the truth of your connections. Here's another harmful narrative. Have you heard that you need to figure this out alone? Economic struggles are a reason for personal shame. Right? Keep it to yourself. What if the United States economy is different than it's ever been? What if the young people who exit college now have no ability to rely on staying with one company for their entire career and other things that we consider traditional? In order to counteract a harmful story that doesn't connect with people's lived realities, we have to let go of shame and hold fast to ethics that center not just individualism, but rather a strong focus on everyone making it. When you contribute your giving power to this sacred intentional community where people participate together, what you're saying is that together participation is enough to nurture and enough to support. That's what matters to you. And there's a little more to it. Brene Brown is a researcher who specifically studies how shame affects people in relationships. She defines shame as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. Something we've experienced, done, or failed to do makes us unworthy of connection. Just by considering that definition, you begin to understand how it is that shame about money is the opposite of the love and community that we practice. Money is useful. We use it. And because people and animals and the environment matter to us, we consider how it is that money can use us. Or, more precisely, what it means that we can be operating with unexamined values around money. One last harmful belief. Some people think about money this way. Don't talk about your economic reality with anyone else. It is either shamefully bad, embarrassingly better, or just terribly inappropriate and uncomfortable. Again with the shame. Money and talking about money doesn't have to make us feel bad about ourselves. It sometimes feels bad to have money stress. That's right. But money stress is an ordinary human experience, not one that happens to people because they're bad humans. You see that difference? The subject of money itself isn't really the problem. When we talk about money, some of what we're talking about is who has it and who doesn't. As long as we're being respectful, that's one way to notice the world around us and to understand people's lived experiences. It doesn't automatically equal being insensitive. Some people avoid talking about money because they have more interesting things to talk about, like ideas, dreams, possibilities. That's okay too, but it shouldn't keep us from talking about money when being organized and intentional with funds helps things run smoothly and robustly. What about the times that you feel you don't know enough about money? Here at UUCF, financial details are available and openly discussed. But then what does that mean when you're looking at a budget? It's easy to have questions and wonder, but remember that you don't have to know everything to get in touch with your own generosity and participate. That's one special thing about generosity. It's not just about numbers. It's about your heart. The first time I went to Chicago in January for seminary, I took a sturdy pair of snow boots. One thing I didn't know at the time was that people often change their shoes once they get indoors. But because that was the only pair of shoes I brought, I had to keep them on all day. By the middle of the week, my feet were tired of being in boots, and I just wanted another pair of shoes so my feet could have a rest. Then, something special happened. My classmate Shauna gave me a pair of black and pink Nikes. They were hers, but she said, "They fit you. You should wear them." When I told her that I was going to tell you this story, she said, "You forgot the part where you said they were veritable pillows for the feet." I said, "I'll make sure to include that." I tried to give them back to her the next day, but she'd already gone and bought another pair for herself, making it easy for me to keep the black and pink ones. Part of the advantage of being able to give in community is that people share their talents and skills to make sure that money is taken care of properly and responsibly. This means that if you do not understand about double entry accounting, nothing will be missing or go wrong solely on that basis. You can trust the generous instincts of your heart, and there will be people to ask questions if you need to. In other words, open conversations are part of what we're doing here in order to build community. Remember how we started the sermon with the story of Eileen Taylor and how she discovered that the things that she needed had already been paid for? Do you remember the energy and the reaction of joy that spread through the community? That's part of what we share here when we give in community. The joy of sharing is connected to sharing money. The two are not perfectly equal, though. I just told you a story about someone giving me a used pair of tennis shoes that made all the difference. Specifically, the amount of your gift is not more important than the generous nature of your gift or the way that you share it with your open heart. Money flows even when there's no obvious or immediate exchange of goods or labor. From your hand to mine, from mine to yours, from me to the community as a whole, from the community to me or you, the money flows or abundance stops. Rabbis understood that in order to encourage the flow of abundance, it was necessary to encourage the flow of money from hand to hand. They told the parable of the difference between the Sea of Galilee, in which fish and vegetation flourish, and the Dead Sea, which is indeed dead. The Sea of Galilee, they explained, receives waters from and gives forth into, do you know what river? The Jordan River. So it stays alive. The Dead Sea receives water from the Jordan, but does not give forth. Since the Dead Sea takes without sharing, it deadens itself. We consider generosity because it offers healing things that will take away. Once more. We consider generosity because it offers healing of the things that will take away energy from our spirit. We think of giving in community because it multiplies the power of giving alone. But even further, I urge you to give because it helps you develop into the person you are meant to be. It is a time-honored element of Unitarian thought and teaching that to become better persons, we must take actions that move us in that direction. Channing called this self-culture, and he had this to say about it. Self-culture is possible, not only because we can enter into and search ourselves, we still have a nobler power, that of acting on, determining, and forming ourselves. This is a fearful and glorious endowment, for it is the ground of human responsibility. We have the power not only of tracing our powers, but of guiding and impelling them, not only of watching our passions, but of controlling them, not only of observing our faculties grow, but of applying to them influences to aid their growth. We can focus on perfection and make everything speed toward it. This is indeed a noble prerogative of our nature. Right? The noble prerogative of your nature is to use your generosity. And that's why your generous heart matters more than the numbers. And the two are still very connected. Today, I invite you to move toward your best self by practicing generosity. Find your joy of giving and share it with us today. So some of you may not yet have a pledge card, even though they went out in the mail. You can see John Straw, and he'll make sure that you get one. We also have letters that are informative and other information. And if you have questions, John Straw is a great resource for that, making sure that people have the paperwork and information that they need for pledging and giving. And remember, it's not just about the numbers, but also about your self-culture and using the noble side of your nature. Thank you.